If you are still confused about frame rates, don't worry. You're not alone. I used to just pick one at random, learn it really, really well, and then use it as a crutch because I didn't want to learn anything else. But once you actually start to understand them, your footage starts to look more cinematic, but even more so, intentional. And so let's break down frame rates so that way my 3-year-old niece can understand it. So the first thing we need to do is define what cinematic footage looks like. Now, your films, your videos do not need to be Christopher Nolan level productions. A great example of this is Casey Neistat in his daily vlogs. Now, if you aren't familiar with Casey Neistat, he did a daily vlog for what I think was almost 800 days. And the beautiful part about it was that he didn't do any color grading, he didn't have a massive production, but no one can argue that his vlogs weren't cinematic because every shot he took was intentional. And so all cinematic is being intentional with how you film it, how you frame it, and the story that you're trying to tell. And so your frame rate should be based on the goal that you're trying to achieve, because using the right one is about matching the feeling that you want your audience to experience. Just imagine frame rate as yet another tool in your toolbox. So let's break it down. There are 3 core frame rates that almost every filmmaker and videographer uses. That's 24 frames, 30 frames, and 60 frames. So let's walk through the technical side of each frame rate as well as the creative side for each frame rate. Now, starting with 24 frames, if we're talking about the technical side of things, let's start with shutter speed. Now, you always want your shutter speed set to double what your frame rate is. So 24 doubled is 48, but there is no 1/48 for your shutter speed. So typically, us as creatives will shoot with a shutter speed of 1/50. Shooting in this frame rate results in motion blur and is typically used for things like traditional movies or cinematic storytelling, but the creative side goes a little bit deeper than that. But a lot of people associate this frame rate with the feeling of immersion or trying to portray like a dream-like experience for viewers. In my own experience, I use 24 frames a lot for weddings, especially during the moments that help give context to the film. So things like the full ceremony, the speeches, the first looks, I film all of that in 24 frames. And so the TLDR, the too long didn't read, because I just learned what that means, is if you want your films to feel real, 24 frames is the way to go. And so moving on to 30 frames, let's dive into the technical side of things. Now, with 30 frames, you want your shutter speed to be double the frame rate that you're using. So with 30 frames, you want your shutter speed to be doubled at 1/60. Now, the result of this is a little more subtle. And personally, I don't typically use 30 frames, but I know a lot of people who do. And the result of it is just having a little less motion blur, and you'll notice that you have slightly crispier movements. Now, 30 frames is typically used for things like TV shows, news broadcasts, and even YouTube videos like this. Now, I'm going to preface, I'm filming this entire thing in 24 frames, but that is entirely a preference because I want you guys to feel like you're sitting here with me. And so in simplest terms, it is slightly more polished than 24 frames, but it's not overly cinematic. Don't overthink it too much. Again, it's all about intention, and it is entirely dependent upon your preference. And finally, moving on to 60 frames per second. Now, talking from a technical side of things, I'm going to give you guys the opportunity to answer this. But if you're shooting in 60 frames, your shutter speed should be double what your frame rate is. So that should be, if you guys said 1/120, you'd be correct. Now, a lot of cameras don't shoot in 1/120, so you got to use the next best thing, which is 1/125. That's what my camera shoots in. And the results of this is a very, very sharp image with almost no motion blur. Now, what is this used for? Most commonly in my world, I typically use 60 frames for slow motion footage of my brides and my grooms in weddings, but it can be used for a multitude of different things. If you're a gamer, capturing things in 60 frames allows things to be really, really sharp, but it's also really good for filming things like action scenes, or if you're into sports videography, capturing sports as well. Now, here's a little creative caveat. If you overuse this frame rate at normal speed, what it can do is actually make your footage look cheap or soap opera-like, unless it fits the style that you guys are trying to achieve. And so here's the TLDR on everything that we just talked about today. If you're shooting in 24 frames, it has the most motion blur and is honestly probably the most cinematic. If you're shooting in 30 frames, it has a little bit less motion blur. It's a little bit of a subtle difference from 24 frames, but it's great for things like YouTube vlogs, tutorials, and so on. And finally, 60 frames is phenomenal for slow motion footage, but also great for action scenes as well as sports videography. If you guys are new here, my name is AJ and I'm a wedding videographer based in Omaha, Nebraska. And I started YouTube and I started this channel to help creatives grow their video business as well as grow in their creative field. And so if you vibed with this video, or you got some value from it, do me one thing and one thing only. If you could drop a like on this video, that would mean the absolute world. And if you want to learn more, click this video somewhere on the screen and you guys can learn about the 5 different audio types that I use when capturing my videos here at home. Thanks for watching.